Many of you have been following along on my conception journey and my pregnancy journey, and you have reached out to me to congratulate me on my birth and in the postpartum. So this week, I want to share with you all my birth story and the creation story of my practice from a slightly different angle. So join me this week as we take a look at, as you can hear him in the background, the birth of my son. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am on maternity leave still, but I am still recording episodes because we've got a lot of really good stuff to share this season. So today I am joined by Allycia Kimball. Welcome, Allycia.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
So, Allycia, if you have been following Moon Essence and seeing that we have new practitioners that have joined the practice, Allycia is one of those practitioners. She is doing acutonic sound healing for me at the practice. So, if you are local to the Seacoast area of Maine and New Hampshire or Dover, New Hampshire, where my office is based out of, she is a familiar face that you will see in the office. We are so lucky to have her. But I invited Allycia on the show today because Allycia attended my birth. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Allycia so that she can talk a little bit about her background with birth and her talents as an amazing photographer around birth. And then we'll kind of jump into my birth story a little bit.
Hi. It's so good to see you with a baby in your arms. I'm going to try not to cry through this entire episode.
That's okay. Let the emotions flow.
I'm already feeling it. I just feel like we've talked about this moment for a long time, just seeing you in this space. So it's really good. I'm glad we're here. I have been a photographer for many years professionally, mostly in Boston. So it's really cool that I'm reestablishing myself in this area. And I live in New York now, New York, Maine. And birth photography kind of came to me out of the blue. My cousin Jen, actually, she asked if I would attend her birth years ago. And she said she kind of needed like a doula and a photographer in one. And I had already been on that track, on the doula track. So I was like, okay, cool. And we were super close. So I attended her birth and ended up just like, completely, I was blown away. I had a really incredible experience and I learned a lot about hospital birth at that time and what that looked like and also how to advocate for my cousin space. And that was really incredible. And just the power of birth and the messiness and the rawness and the realness. And then, seeing how incredibly strong my cousin was during birth and, just all of it. And then after that, it kind of just snowballed. And a friend of hers, her name was Candace, she asked if I would attend her home birth and photograph her home birth. And I did, and again, I was blown away and just completely in awe of the process and the women and the babies and how, they chose to arrive Earthside. And as a photographer at the time, I went to school in Boston for photography and I majored in fine art, color, and documentary photography. So it was really cool to kind of be in the birth space because I felt like I was able to just kind of go into the mode that I normally went into, but it was such an intimate space. And I just, I don't know, I just really loved it. And then from there, I just started to see more and more clients. And I ended up in that space for a really long time. And I actually, with your birth, kind of got back into it. I took a few years away from it and I really miss it. I grew up around my mom was a doula. So I grew up as, I mean, I remember my first birth, I think I was probably 4 or 5. I attended with my mom. It was one of her friends, and so I have memories of birth, but to be there and to be of service to these women and dads, that's a whole other podcast, really. But it was just, it's something that really my heart is totally in, and I'm so grateful I get to be a part of it. I have not given birth myself, but to be in that space is just a huge gift and privilege. So, yeah, it was attending your birth was unlike any of the births I've been to, and I've been to a few. And I say that knowing and loving you and knowing, your journey to get to this point, but I'm still processing it. It was really incredible and powerful, and you were like total superstar. I'm still blown away. So, yeah, it was cool to get back into it with you and with your family. It was really just, yeah, full circle for sure. So,
I was thinking about what you were saying about how intimate the setting is. And it's really true. I mean, birth is one of the most, if not the most powerful thing your body can do.
mhm.
And you literally have to let it all hang out. Like there's no room for being modest or conservative or worrying about having your voice heard or anything like that. And, as you were talking about how intimate that space is, at the beginning part of my labor, I remember I was like cracking jokes and stuff because I thought I was a total funny guy. And
You are. Oh, wow. I have some of that on camera, so that I do.
so it's like, I just think about how different I am. And I know some of it is my age, right? So, like, anybody who's been listening to the show for a while, you know that I'm 40 years old and I just gave birth and I conceived naturally with my son. Like, I haven't been at all shy about any of that, specifically because we have this understanding in our culture that we can't really be successful, or we need donor eggs, or we need interventions, or that our bodies are subpar somehow and require medical intervention in order to be able to do the thing. And our bodies are friggin' brilliant. And they
Mm,
can actually do a lot of things without encouragement or people telling them what they need to do.
mm,
So I've been very open about the fact that I conceived naturally and I'm 40 years old. And I chose to have a home birth because I had a home birth with my first child that I was able to carry to term. But the biggest piece of it is just the autonomy, sovereignty, your ability to choose, your ability to go the distance. I think that's the best way to word it. And I say that in terms of not being forced into interventions at 39 weeks because one study says that there is better outcomes that way, but actually be able to honor the body's process
Yeah.
and allow the body to go the distance that it needs to go in order for there to be a healthy birth outcome, because our bodies know what they need to do.
Mhm.
And so I don't think I could yell in a public setting. You know what I mean? Like, I think if I had gone to the hospital, like, that would have been really hard for me. And the intimacy of being in a home birth, you have all of the smells of home, you have all the comforts of your own bed, and yes, are there a small percentage of people who need, because of medical reasons, to go to a hospital? Absolutely. And I'm not acknowledging that. But there are a lot of people who have very healthy pregnancies that could absolutely experience a non-interventive birth. And because of the way in which the traditional model works, they end up with interventions that they either didn't want or may not really have needed. And, with my first birth, I was home. So I've had both of my kids at home, and I still, because of my age, because of where I was at in my life, like, the whole idea of being loud was very weird for me. And so as I was cracking jokes at the beginning of my labor this time, well, I was maybe midway through and I was still cracking jokes. But I was like thinking about the fact that, maybe it's age, because as you get older, like, you kind of, your give a shit filter kind of disappears and you're like, this is what I think. I'm for some people and I'm not for others, right? So so, like, I don't know if it was age or if it was the fact that I've just reached this place in my life as a practitioner and speaking out for people having options and, that kind of thing. I mean, hello, the name of this show is Reproductive Rebel, right? That I just didn't care that I was being loud, and I didn't care that I had to growl to get my kid out. Like, it just didn't matter anymore, but there's the intimacy of the whole thing, right?
Yeah. And the more that you growled, the more that you went into that visceral, like,
Mhm.
I don't give a flying, you know, that's when you pushed him out. Like, that's when you were just like, you transformed. And watching that is what I was just like, wow. Yeah. And having the midwife that you had too, she, like, I love that she has this kind of like the sense of humor that you needed
Yeah.
to, like, to do what you did, and, like, just seeing you guys work together, that was part of it for me too. I was just like, "Wow, this is really powerful," because yeah, you did growl. Some yeah, but that's so good, like, it was inspiring, honestly. Like, I wanna live like that whether I'm giving birth or, not. I wanna just, like, that's where I wanna be, really. So
This birth experience tested me in
mm,
ways that I didn't anticipate. Having been through the birthing process before, my first child took 15 and a half hours. I pushed for 3. I was also 27 years old,
mm,
and my recovery looked very different. Some of it was the circumstances of my life at the time, but some of it I really just think had a lot to do with the fact that I was younger. And that was the saving grace in terms of some of my recovery. I've had to be very intentional this time. So this time, you know, I had taken the time to build my body. So I had a very healthy pregnancy. I mean, 40 years old, I had no gestational diabetes. I had no blood pressure issues, nothing. I was still moving and active, and I felt very vibrant even right up until the end. So I haven't recorded a podcast since I was pregnant. So I was 42 weeks exactly when I gave birth to my son. And because the last pregnancy, I gave birth at 38 and 5, I felt like I was pregnant forever. And I was like, "Is he ever going to come?" I had some days where I felt fine with it, and I was like, "You know what? I'm letting my baby lead. It's gonna be great." And then there were other times where I was like, "Is he ever gonna come? I hope that this is okay." So, like, I had doubt days, right? Because it just felt so long compared to the last one. At the same time, like, I really loved the fact that I was pregnant that long because I loved feeling him moving around inside of me and having him with me and all of those things. But, you know, one thing that, like, I definitely, as part of this birth story piece, want to reiterate to people, please do not make moms with long gestation feel like a watched pot that's never going to boil. I think that was probably mentally the hardest part for me. And it was all coming from a loving place. Trust me. I know that none of it was done to make me feel that way. But when you have several family members that aren't communicating with each other and you have well-intentioned friends who are like, "Man, I feel like you should have had that kid by now." Yeah, yep. Well, if I was in the hospital model, they would have had me have this kid by now, right? And so, it's very hard to do the mental game
Mhm.
when you're over 40 weeks and everybody is like, how much you've dilated checked. Have you this? Have you that? Is there a problem? Oh, you're going to have a cesarean because you're going to have a 10-pound kid. Like, our bodies don't build things that you know what I mean? Like, I just had faith that my body built a baby that I could birth and it was going to be okay. But all of that chatter is kind of like when people want to share their birth stories. And it is important to share birth stories. So I kind of want to put that out there too. Is it is important to share birth stories. It is part of our healing process. It is part of our processing process. We need to become embodied again because when you pass through the birth portal, you have an out of body experience when you do that. And so birth stories are important. However, when people have trauma in their birth story, for them, it makes it even more important for them to share. And there needs to be people that will hold space for that. But when you are preparing to be the birthing body, stories like that, even when you know and you have unshakable faith in your intuition and in your body's wisdom and that everything is okay and you have nothing to worry about, those things still wiggle their way into your brain somewhere and into their stress level somewhere. So I just kind of want to put a pin in both of those things, having just come through this process and highlight how important it is to just hold space and listen to mom's fears and excitements and all of those things and not choose that as the time to share your birth story with them because this birthing body is going to have a birth story very soon and then both of you can swap stories and hold that space for one another. And it's not that you can't do it, it's that it's not really a supportive time and place to do that. So there's my little, thank you for coming to my TED Talk because I had a lot of that. And I know other people do too. In seeing clients all the time, I hear this constantly. And then to go through it myself, I'm like, man, like people aren't kidding. Like, this is what their experience is like. So it was very eye opening for me. And generationally, people will talk about different things too. And so, the moral of the story is hold space, and then both of you can swap your birth stories and talk about how your beautiful miracles came into the world. I was having prodromal labor, which means I would start going into labor and then it would stop. And then I would have like a day, maybe two, and nothing would happen. And then I would start going into labor and then I would stop. My son hadn't descended quite enough. So his head wasn't putting enough pressure on my cervix. So that was a very frustrating process for me. So that when that chatter began, it was even more discouraging and frustrating and instilled a little fear and all of those kinds of things. So he decided that exactly 2 weeks after his due date was a cool time to come. I had gone to acupuncture 3 times that week because I was coming up on 42 weeks. In the state of Maine, legally, a midwife can only care for you until you hit 43 weeks. So I was starting to feel a little bit of pressure in terms of, okay, child, like, we're coming up against this deadline. Like, can we do this? Like, I've totally had faith in my body led process up until this point, and now I'm slightly concerned. So, acupuncture was motivating on Tuesday of that week. And then my contractions gassed out in the middle of the night. And I woke up on Wednesday so frustrated because I really thought that it was happening. They were intensifying, they kept going. And as soon as I laid down and he wasn't putting pressure on my cervix anymore, it stopped. So Thursday, I went for another acupuncture appointment. We did a much more stimulating treatment in that particular appointment. And I walked afterwards, and I expected it to kickstart within a couple hours afterwards like it had done on Tuesday. Nothing. So I started to get really discouraged. And I had a medicine ball or a birthing ball in my living room, a yoga ball. And I was rocking back and forth and all around and trying to get my hips moving. And I had done a miles circuit and walked and you name it. I had done all the pelvic opening, whatever kinds of things that I could possibly do. And it wasn't until late evening, I would say probably 7, almost 8 o'clock, that I started feeling something. Now, mind you, I had my acupuncture appointment at 9 o'clock that morning, and I pretty much, after my walk, sat on that ball the entire day, rolling my hips and all of these things. So when I started feeling something happening around 7 o'clock, I didn't want to get excited and tell anybody because I had had this on and off prodromal labor for so long that I was waiting for somebody to look at me and go, "Ah, just kidding. This isn't actually gonna commit this time, right?" So, they started intensifying, and that gave me motivation to keep rolling on the ball. Because 'Cause I'm like, "Oh, maybe this is happening. I don't know. I don't dare tell anybody that something's happening right now because I don't know that it's going to stay here." But it kept going, and it kept intensifying, and then I looked at my husband, and I was like, "I think something's happening." So this was in the 9 o'clock hour. I'm like, "Yep, nope, something's definitely happening." By 10, I felt like it was safe enough to actually tell people. This was kinda like like a bookend to how my pregnancy began. Because I've had 7 losses, I
Mm.
was afraid to tell anybody that I was pregnant at the beginning until I was through the first trimester. And I saw this post, Undefined Motherhood, I believe is the account holder. And it was those slides, if it was a haunted house, and then, like, you make the statement underneath because it's October, and she was talking about, like, people who have had recurring losses because this is Pregnancy Loss and Awareness Month, and my last pregnancy, I lost the day before the Pregnancy Loss and Remembrance Day, which I thought was pretty rude. Anyway, in those slides, she had said, it was the haunted house statement at the beginning. And like one of them was, going to the bathroom and checking the toilet paper every time you go.
Ooh.
And you know what I mean? And like that was my experience in my first trimester. I didn't dare tell anybody because I really wanted this pregnancy and I was kind of terrified it wasn't going to stay.
You remember, sorry to interrupt, but do you remember I was on your table receiving treatment one day when you were a little bit before, and then the day you made the transition into the first, like, past the first trimester, you literally did, like, a full-on dance in the hallway.
Yeah.
We're like, like, I've seen you get excited, but, like, that was so amazing because you were like, "I did it, we're through this part."
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that. You were literally, like, dancing through the it was so good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a powerful moment to feel like I had come across that threshold because Like, my last loss was so close to that threshold. Like, I was almost in the 2nd trimester, and it just shattered my soul on so many levels, and so those posts really kinda resonated with me, and then I feel like I kind of had that bookend on the other end, like, I was waiting for labor to come, and it was, like, threatening, but didn't quite commit, so I was like, "Cool." So he came in the same way he's going out. This is amazing. Completing lots of circuits, a 7-year cycle to get here. This is the numerologically the year of 8. So there's a lot of things that are coming full circle right now, and if anybody knows anything about astrology, this is being recorded at the beginning of October or almost middle of October at this point, and there's a lot of those things thematically that are happening at an astrological level, so it was very meaningful the way that everything came full circle, but I felt like we could alert the media finally that it was actually happening, but it was like as soon as I let that out, everything started to roll, and quite quickly. Contractions started getting closer and closer together. It was like 3 minutes off, 1 minute on. My husband goes, "Oh, I gotta get the midwife here." So he reached out to the midwife, he reached out to you, he reached out to you know what I mean? So we let people know, and everybody started kinda trickling into the house, and it was like as bodies were arriving, the people that needed to be there, things, like, intensified, like, more and more. They got closer together, I was not able to crack quite as many jokes in between. I'm not kidding, I really thought I was a funny guy there for, what, almost
I'm
3
telling
hours?
you were. That was those were some of your best since I've known you, like, that was amazing. And Morgan too, like, everyone, like, the whole room, that was hilarious. Like, there were so many good jokes happening. I'm like, yeah. Until we transitioned, we were all just like, yeah, it was that was awesome.
I couldn't help it, like, it was like the dry wit and sarcasm was just rolling out of me. Th
Your
I
husband is hilarious too, by the way.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
a funny dude. That was awesome.
It was just funny because I'd come through a contraction and I'm just like, "Woo! Okay, well,
Yeah.
here we go. Insert sarcasm here," right? Like, I just couldn't help it, and, I mean, my husband, he is, like, the king of dry wit too, so, like, between the 2 of us, like, it was slapstick comedy, but they started, like, taking my breath away, and then I got to a point where, like, I couldn't even think funny anymore because I couldn't catch my breath, so to speak. Like, I was rolling, like, one contraction into the next, and the level of intensity was totally different than it was with my daughter. Those were intense, but this hit a completely different peak. My body had a mind of its own. I didn't have any say in the intensity of the wave or how it came, and I feel like so much of our culture strives to control everything that it possibly can, and birth is the ultimate surrender. It has to be in order for there to be a positive outcome. And I remember I got to a point so I wear glasses. If you guys see any of my reels and whatnot, like, usually I'm in contacts because I hate wearing glasses on my face. I just don't like how they feel. But I chose to be no glasses, no contacts. Well, some of the no contacts wasn't my choice because I went into labor really late at night and I'd been wearing them all day. I had just taken them off for bed and then my contractions were like, "Hey girl, we're gonna do this now." So I liked being in that space because everything was soft and fuzzy around me. And it was like me and my body. And I was able to drop into my body in a completely different way because I wasn't focused on little things happening in the room. I think the clarity would have taken away some of my surrender. So, like, I didn't really look at anybody. I mean, I was when I was cracking jokes, but, like, when I got, like, down to business, I couldn't look at anyone anymore. And it was just one wave to the next, and they were so intense and so close together. With my daughter, I was able to nap between them. With my son, I was not. And My husband was the most supportive birth partner. He held space in a way that I've never met a man who can hold space like that. And I know that they're out there, so anybody who's just like, "But my man can do that," like, I'm sure that you probably have that as well, but I have never met a man who can hold space the way that my husband did.
That was a first birth for me to see that completely. Like, he was incredible.
So I know internally what that looked like. It
Mhm.
looked like when I needed to bear down because I had so much pressure in like pushing, he was like putting his thumbs into my low back, like right where I needed for pain relief. And after every contraction, he'd lean over my shoulder and he'd say in my ear, "You're doing a great job, babe. Keep going. You're bringing our son to us. Like, you're doing a great job." And I was sitting on a birthing stool and I would lean back against him, and it just felt so nice to be held that way, that his strong presence was just holding that space for me. And he was as involved with the delivery as he physically could be. And it was nice because I felt like we were bringing him into the world together. Just like at the beginning, that's how we were completing that same circuit, and it was really special to share that with him, and I found a new crescendo in terms of how intense contractions can be. Just when I thought I was there, they switched gears and made me roar like an uncaged animal. You had said something to me the other day, and this is why I wanted to do this podcast together because you made some really cool observations. Because, like, I was so in my body and in what was happening, but you got to witness it all
Mhm.
externally. And you made some really, really profound statements that I thought would be really important to have people hear. And just one, because you have witnessed births before and you've been there and you've taken photos and you've seen family dynamics and all of those kinds of things. And, just so that people know what's possible in terms of birth.
Yeah, just watching you move through the beginning of the birth. I mean, I see your story from when I met you. So you were pregnant, you know, not soon after I met you, but pretty soon after I met you. And just watching you through your pregnancy, witnessing your strength through that journey, and then seeing you in that room with Eric, with your husband, with your daughter, with the like, there was just this power in you. And like to see all of the work that you did, all of the things that you did for your body, and while teaching other women, while helping all of us to become stronger in our own minds and bodies. But watching you birth like that, like everything that you did up until that point, it assisted you in your delivery. And you were so powerful. Like you went from this like kind of high pitched, you were almost singing. Like I finally
Yes.
heard that singing voice that I hear when you talk. Like I heard you in that space. And then when you went in and you kind of, left your body and you were pushing him out, it was so incredibly powerful. Like, I felt it. I could feel it in my bones. It was just like, wow, you transformed. And there was no way that you were not getting him out. Like, he was
Mhm.
coming out and you 2 were working. And then you kept encouraging him.
Mhm.
Even through the worst of it, like the most painful parts for you, I could feel that you were talking to him being like, "Good job, bud." Like, and Morgan and I were just like, "Good job, Adrian." Like, like, but yeah, I don't remember what I said to you, but I do remember just I've never attended a birth so powerful with everything that I've learned where I come from, Chinese herbal medicine, like all of the schools that I have been through. photography included, like, I've never been a part of a birth where I got to see all of the fruits kind of, like, of your labor literally, like, come together, and then you haven't been through this part of your story yet, but then to see when things can, certain things can happen during birth. I'm not gonna say negative or positive, but, like, when things do happen and because of your knowledge and your preparation, where some women or people might, be forced to go to the hospital or feel fear, like, you were prepared for those things and you knew exactly what to do, and so did your body. So I had never witnessed that. I witnessed a few home births where they were really incredible and the baby was okay and mom was okay, but there were interventions, like I had never been a part of a birth so powerful and complete. And it really like it not only changed my perspective in terms of like being a photographer and being in that space, but like hoping to have children of my own someday and to be doing it in that setting, like I feel so much more prepared and so much more inspired. Like the fear left. Like witnessing you give birth, it literally like all of the pieces came together. And even your daughter being there, like I was just like, this is amazing, You manifested all of that and you worked really hard to get there. So yeah, it was super powerful for me to witness that for sure. And now I know the midway if I want to. So that's great. Thank you very much.
She's amazing. I
All
knew
of
when
your
I
practitioners, like the women in your community, the way that you support each other, literally, they've all helped me and on major levels as well. So I wouldn't know you if it wasn't for them, literally. So yeah,
yeah,
it's powerful.
I'm so grateful for my village, and that's something that I am hoping our listeners will take away from this too, is you really are in a position when you are a birthing body where you need a village, you need a community, you need people to hold you and help you and be able to support you. And, I've done a few posts on social media thanking some of the beautiful people. And I have more of these posts to do just because, like, I'm so grateful for all of the practitioners who've supported me. And the thing is like, I'm a healer, I'm a practitioner, but I don't do it alone, right? Like, yes, I have my area of expertise, but I really believe that people need a care team because different specialties give different things. Like, I have the most awesome acupuncturist, and she is a big part of the reason why I had such a beautiful pregnancy and helping to bring my son into the world. And she's been working with me for years towards this goal. But it was the adjustment for my amazing chiropractor, like, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock that night, that really kickstarted stuff. Like, she came, she did the adjustment at my house, and then, like, within 15, 20 minutes of her leaving, it was, like, on. So,
Yeah.
like, it really does take a village, and I had been steaming and I had been doing all the things that I needed to do, but, when you're the one that has certain specialties, like, it's either hard for you to do those things on yourself, or you need other people's energy
Yes.
as part of the equation in order for your body to be able to do what it needs to do and be held in all the ways it needs to be held.
Told me when I first met you guys that we heal in community. That's how we heal.
100%.
And I carry that with me and will forever. That really and my journey, so that was just super powerful, and then I saw it in action. When I walked in, you were like, "Well, she adjusted me, and now here we are. Here we go."
She
It's
wasn't
like,
messing around. Here we
"Well,
are.
well, but that's the power." So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, when we got to the really intense pieces, you said that it was like I was talking to him. I don't know if I said it out loud, actually. Did I?
Did, yeah.
I did. Okay. So
I have that on camera. I have that all on video. I can't go through these videos without sobbing. I'm like, "Okay, pull yourself together." Like, Yeah, you did. Yeah, you were like, "Good job, bud." It's really cool.
'Cause I know that I had moments where when I was internal and I was
Mm,
really inside, I was like, "All right, I need you to help me. You
yeah,
know, I can only do so much, but we're doing this together."
yeah,
And I really was trusting my body and my baby to lead and to do what we needed to do. I mean, birthing is a rite of passage. We used to do it surrounded in community. They were called gossips, surrounded in community by other women, other healers, family members. It didn't matter. Like we used to do this in community with other women. And that's exactly what my birth was. My husband was there, and then I had a community of women that helped me to get this labor on the road and support me through the entire birthing portal. And that's what it felt like. I felt like I was stepping through into, I mean, you're stepping into matrescence, which is a new version of you. It's a new phase of your life. It's a new way of moving through the world. Even if you already have kids, like when you birth a child, you are stepping into a new rhythm in your life. As I sit here rocking my son, who thankfully finally decided that he was going to fall asleep. I was worried that we weren't going to be able to get this entire episode off the ground because he was wicked fussy just before this. But, you know, you are becoming, you're transforming into a new version of you
mm,
as you step through that portal and you cross that threshold. And birth shapes you into, and how the birth goes challenges you and gives you tools and perspective, I believe deep down, to be the person that that child needs you to be. And so my daughter is 13 now. And I remember at the very early part of my pregnancy, I got kind of emotional, yay, hormones, about the fact that there was going to be such a big age difference between her and her brother because we had tried for so many years and hoping that they were going to be closer in age. And, you know, it just wasn't the way that the universe had it laid out for us. So, you know, and she said something really, she is magic in and of herself. And
You're magic. So
she really is.
I love her so much.
She had said to me, she goes, "Actually, mom, I'm really glad that you're having him now because now I'm going to remember it and I can be part of it." And I thought that was such a beautiful perspective. And after this birth, she asked me, she goes, "So, how is my birth different than his?" And I said, "Oh, that's a good question." I said, "Your birth tested my stamina because it was longer and I had to go the distance and I had to find my way inside of myself because at the time I wasn't doing the work that I do now. I was a director of a department for a nonprofit. I moved to the world in a much more masculine energy kind of way because I was a director. I had to execute and make decisions and, you know, all of these kinds of things. And pregnancy and birth showed me I was female and my biorhythm needed to be different than everything else, and her birth was all about stamina and being able to allow myself inside of myself and out of my head and be embodied. That was the greatest gift that her delivery gave me, was learning how to be inside of myself in a way that I had never been before. And respect the power inside of myself in a way that I had never found before. With him, it was about willpower. That's what I said to her. I was like, with you, it was stamina. For him, all willpower. Because at one point, things started to slow down in terms of how the progress felt. It was ferocious at the beginning. It was fast. I was progressing really quickly. I was getting to the pushing stage. There was no delays there. You know, my birth with my daughter was 15 and a half hours. With him, it was 6. But I pushed for 2 with him. I pushed for 3 with her, but I pushed for 2 with him. But her contractions never peaked the way that his did. And she was a pound and some change bigger and 2.5 inches longer than he was. Like, she was so much bigger than him. And I had back labor, and her position wasn't as optimal as his was. And he just got to a point where he's like, "No, guys, I'm I'm coming on my own time. You're not just gonna push me out." And that's when I started talking to him. I'm like, "I cannot do this without you. We need to do this together. We're a team. I
Mm.
trust you, but you have to work with me." And I had all of these conversations with him inside of my head instead of panic about the things slowing down.
Yep.
Like, every contraction, I'd be like, "Good job, dude. We can do this." And I wasn't sure if I externalized some of that conversation or not. I just remember having it
Yep.
because, like, I knew that he needed to work with me. We needed to do this together. And it was like every time I put my intention to him and talked to him directly, I felt like we had movement. It was nothing short of magical. It was like I was talking to him and he goes, "Okay," and, like, would start doing what he had to do. I started pushing a little too early because my contractions had reached the peak that they had reached with my daughter. So I was like, "Oh, it's time to push now." Oh, no. Oh, he found a whole new fever pitch of contraction. And if I had just waited, I think, a little bit longer, because see, that's where my head entered the picture, and I needed to tell the ego brain to sit down and be quiet. So, ego brains, I need to do a whole episode about ego brains and the fact that we need to
Please.
just tell the girls to sit down and be quiet.
Yep.
But
It's in my head every day. Yeah.
right? So, I had thought my way through that part, thinking, "Oh, this is what it was like with Evie." And then I was like, "Ha ha ha, ha, just kidding. Oh God, what fresh hell is this?" Because where he was sitting at that point, I couldn't get into a position where I felt like I could push the way that I needed to push. He required effort and strength to push. And even working with each contraction and giving myself a break, like, I wasn't pushing at inappropriate times. I wasn't sticking my head up. I was trying to keep my voice nice and low, my mouth round, because your voice, if you look at a diagram of your throat and all of that, it looks like your reproductive organs. More on that at a later time. But there's a huge connection between your cervix and your throat. So I wasn't at all shy about growling and moaning low, and I was so hoarse the next day. Well, next several days. You can hear it a little bit, I guess, now too, but I was not shy about it at all because I knew the vibration was necessary, and I knew that that open, round sound was going to help him to move and help my cervix to open and help him to descend. And it got to a point where I really did feel like an animal. There is such a primal energy to birth, and we don't hold space for the fact that birth is a very primal thing. As primal as how babies get in there is how they come back out.
Mm.
Like, these are things that, like, we've created social constructs around, but in order for these things to happen efficiently and effectively, both conception as well as birth, we have to be able to step into that primal energy and just honor it and honor the animalistic side of things. And that's exactly what this birth sounded like. And I didn't care. If I had asked my 27-year-old self, I would have cared.
Mhm.
But along with the jokes that I was cracking, like, this is just a stage in my life, or maybe it's just because of all of the work that I've done to get here.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. Like, I
Yeah.
just was like, this is me and my baby, and whatever it takes to get him out, he is coming out.
Yep.
And the push was insane. And I remember getting to a point where I thought I had reached the surrender, and then I surrendered further. I was like, "I don't care if I tear. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. I don't care about anything else. He needs to come out now. And the push, I just could feel the peak of the contraction and growled into the push that had to happen when that happened. And then I would let it stop when the contraction would stop. And I was only getting 30, maybe 45 seconds in between. And then it would come again. Like the waves were so close. And I hit a point where I wasn't sure that we were going to get there because it felt like he should have been at the surface. And she's like, reach down and touch your baby. And I reached down and I was like, he's not there. And that's where I hit that transition wall, I think, kind of hard. Because I was like, he's not there. And she's like, but I can see him. So you might not be able to feel him yet, but I can see him. When you have a
Yeah.
contraction, he's right there. And I'm like, it's to come out now.
Yeah, he was amazing too. The 2 of you, the way you communicated, because I know you were in another realm, but, like, watching the 2 of you communicate the way you did was really it was pretty amazing.
So we went and got my daughter. We let her sleep for the first few hours because we had all gone to bed, or they had all gone to bed. I was in the thick of the contractions. And we got her up like just before delivery because my 13-year-old daughter wanted to catch her brother. This is her first biological sibling. And she really wanted to receive him. And I wasn't sure how she was going to handle seeing me in pain like that. I was actually really worried because she is a very tender-hearted creature who
Mm.
just wants to love with her whole heart and doesn't want to see anybody suffer. And she has a hard time seeing me in pain. So I was really a little concerned. Oh no. She
Mhm.
stepped into a whole different energy and was like, she was excited as she was seeing him start to crown. And she tried to put her hand on my knee at one point. Like, I remember she reached out and touched me. And I think it was like too much energy for the 2 of us because she pulled her hand back and I was about to tell her, like, not to because I'm so connected to her that
Mm.
it was like, it was almost like distracting. It wasn't that I didn't want to, like, be touched. It was just the fact that, like, it brought me to the awareness that she was there. And I was worried about going into the birth, like how she was gonna handle seeing me in pain like that. So, like, that kind of took my attention a little bit. But she said, she's like, "Mom, it was just too intense. I couldn't touch you." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, I guess if we were on the same page then." But, like, even the midwife was like, she was amazing. Like, she didn't even hesitate. She was excited. She was, like, watching the whole thing there at the end, and then when it was time to deliver him, the midwife, like, helped him with his little head, and she had her hands right underneath my daughter's hands, and when he came slip sliding out, gooey and all, she didn't even bat an eye. She just caught him, and I cannot wait to see the pictures of
You're
that
incredible.
that whole thing. I can't wait.
Yeah, he was amazing, and she held space for every single person in that room. She held actual space, like, loved on all of us, helped get towels. She was just unbelievable, so, yeah.
She was
You've raised a conscious young woman. You have raised she's incredible. She was amazing, for sure.
thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm biased and I think that she is magic, but I appreciate that because she just didn't hesitate, nothing. It was just like, catch
Yeah,
slimy baby, like, and he pooped on the way out, so there was meconium and blood and the whole thing. Like, she didn't even she was like,
mm,
"Brother!" And then she, like, tried to lift him up to my chest, and so his cord was lightly wrapped around his neck. Without my glasses and in the heat of the moment, I couldn't see that it was lightly wrapped around his neck. I just saw cord, neck, and I started to shake. And I started patting his back, and I could feel the panic. And I was like, "Cry, baby, you've gotta cry." And I started to cry because 'cause I'm like, "We didn't just do all of this for nothing. Like, come on." So, but the midwife was like, "It's okay, he's okay," and she helped get his little cord off his neck, but it took him a minute to, like, cry, and it was, like, the scariest. I don't even know how many. I don't know if it was minutes or seconds or anything, like, time totally stopped in my brain and in my experience until I heard his first little gurgle cry. And then the wave of relief that shot through my system was so fierce that, like, I was shaking, and it was not just adrenaline. Oh, I wish I had words for the intensity of the emotions that shot through my system at that point. The relief, the gratitude, the fear, the relief of that fear, and then processing the fact that he's here, this dream that my husband and I have had for so many years, and the journey it took to get here. And his birth story is so intimately woven into the birth story, the creation story of Moon Essence, my practice, because Moon Essence started with a fertility focus
Mm.
because I was struggling. And I realized that if I was struggling, other people were struggling with the same things. And I didn't want people to suffer with a lack of information the same way I was. They were hitting the same frustrations with the traditional model. They were not getting the answers that they were seeking, either because of time constraints or they hadn't found the right practitioner in order to be able to do that, or, whatever the reason was. They were dealing with all the same things that I was. And so as I learned and grew, I'm like, I need to do this as a job
Mm.
because there are so many people that are dealing with these things that don't have answers like I do. And every woman deserves to have these answers. And so Moon Essence was born officially on paper. I was working with people before that, but officially became an LLC and an actual, like, big girl business with a logo and all that kind of stuff on October 5th. My son was born in the wee hours of the morning on October 5th. So his whole birth journey has been a closing of a loop and a closing of cycles, and literally the creation story of the practice, but the birth story of me as a practitioner, as much as his own birth story. And hundreds of women have come through the practice since its inception. And I've helped people with fertility and labor preparation and postpartum recovery and endometriosis and perimenopause and recurring infections. And, the list goes on and on. And I've become a resource for people who can't find answers anywhere else. And that's exactly the space that I wanted to occupy is, I've been to a bunch of people. I don't have any answers. You're my last hope. Because I didn't have a last hope person when I was going through this journey, and I didn't want people to be without one. So, I
Thank
believe
you.
I'm so grateful for this work and how it has shaped me and how his birth journey has shaped me, my work, and I think this is why he tested my willpower. And
For
why
sure.
it was as intense as it was, because all of the heartache that people go through when they think they can't conceive and they think it's not in the cards for them, or they've taken X number of pregnancy tests and they're debating whether that faint line is an actual positive or not.
Mm.
Am I seeing things? Oh my God, I've asked my husband that question so many times. I've turned a stick around and been like, "I think I see a line. Do you see one?"
Like,
You
hold
know?
it up to the light. I think it's there. Like, yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And to have it finally be a little baby who is currently snoring in my arms right now. The little cat snores, but he's definitely snoring right now. It's the beginning of a completely new book. It's not
Mhm.
just the closing of a chapter, it's a beginning of a completely new book. And I'm so grateful that you captured the ferocity of his birth because it's not just my rainbow baby. It's the end of an era and the beginning of a new. And I'm so grateful that you were there and that you helped and supported in all the ways that you did. You were such an important part of my village, and you were helping to keep my practice baby going while I'm on
I'm
maternity
trying.
leave.
I'm trying. I'm so grateful. I really am. I would not, I don't say this lightly, like, I would not be where I am today, physically, literally, without your help and love and guidance. So when I came to you, I didn't know if I was going to be okay physically with everything that I struggle with. So coming out of that and witnessing your birth was super powerful. It was just like, I don't know. It was really amazing to see you through that. So I'm very grateful to you.
I wish you could have seen me at the beginning of this journey and how sick I was,
Yeah.
really and
Yeah.
truly. Because in order to conceive naturally at 40 and hold this little baby in my arms, I had to change the way that I worked
Yep.
and plan my work with my cycle. I had to change the way that I cared for my body during my period. I had to change the way that I ate. I had to change the way that I exercised. I realized that I no longer could work against the fact that my hormones were on a 28 to 30-day cycle. As much as I wanted to prove to the world that I could do anything a man could do, I can. I just can't do it at the same cadence that a man can.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that I'm any less effective. If anything, I'm more effective,
Yep.
right? And that's a total mindset shift. And that was an area that I needed to grow in. And if any of you listening listened to the episode that I did with Emma Moon about spirit babies,
Yeah. Incredible. She's an amazing human being.
yeah, she is. And the episode was so charged for me
Mhm.
because she helped me understand that his spirit kept coming into my body to help me heal, to help me grow. And, I always looked back at my losses and saw that there was a big shift in my practice, in the way that I did business, in the workflow of things. There was a big shift every single time I had a loss, except the last one. It took me months to see the gift that I had been given because I was so devastated and so heartbroken. And what was birthed out of my daughter's death, because I was expecting a girl, is that training program or training programs that I offer for other practitioners now so that people could become holistic women's health practitioners. Herbalists could specialize in pelvic steaming so that there were more of me in the world
Mhm.
because how I practice really is one of a kind. And this way I can train other practitioners so that we can help more people. That was the gift that my daughter gave me. But I was really angry and in a dark place for quite a few months before I could see the gift that she gave me. I really had to go through that dark night of the soul.
Mhm.
And that space shaped me. It broke me down, but it shaped me. And so I offer not only my birth story because one, plenty of people are asking, so I thought it would be great to do as podcast, but two, I offer it as hope to those who have experienced loss. It doesn't mean it's the end of the road for you. It really doesn't. And so many of us experience loss, and those losses shape our lives. They shape who we are. They
Mhm.
change our trajectory because they're such a big part of who we are. And while the world may move on, like nothing happened or that we're not going to talk about it, they will always be a part of your heart and soul. And that's okay. They are our greatest teacher.
Mhm.
And if we're open to what they are showing us, offering us, then we heal emotionally, physically. I changed so many things in my life. I allowed myself to move through the world in a more spiritual way. If any of you have been following Moon Essence for a while, I started out sounding very clinical, and now I've very much gotten into the woo, and
Mhm.
it's because it's what feels aligned.
Well, if you hadn't told me when I first shared my loss, my stories with you, I lost one of my babies on my wedding day. And if you hadn't shared your stories and your strength with me, I wouldn't be in the place I am now on my healing journey for sure. Like that helped me to release it. And you were the first person, many women helped me and loved me through that. But I felt very alone.
Mhm.
While working with you, I felt like I could finally talk about it. And you also honored it. Like you speak about your losses. And that was something that I just like was really seeking. And I couldn't really talk to anyone about it in the way that you talk about it. So yeah, that changed my life for sure. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
because our losses are a very intimate part of this primal journey.
Yep.
And the world does expect us to go on like they haven't happened.
100%.
And the feelings of isolation are real. And you go into a very dark place. So if you haven't listened to the episode with Emma Moon and the one with Jamie Arroyo, I would highly encourage you to go back and take a look at both of those. I also did one just after that about miscarriage not being failure. So I did 3 of them at the beginning of October that were all very focused around pregnancy loss and the spiritual aspect of it, the physical aspect of it, and the mental aspect of it. Because this is an important topic because so many of us experience it. And like you said, Allycia, like we feel alone.
Very. Yeah. Not anymore though.
No.
Not anymore. I feel very supported. And that's my goal is to share what I've been given with other women and people and men too, like,
Hmm.
is to be able to talk to men about, because a lot of men grieve in ways that, they just weren't able to talk about, and that can lead to illness body as well. So that was powerful for me too, is to see you and your husband, moving through that. That was really powerful.
Yeah, it was, welcoming our son that early morning.
Eric was so excited. It was so cool. He was so excited.
His face, like I've been waiting years to see that kind of joy.
Yep.
And after everything we've been through, and I mean, we've had periods of time where these losses have made us grow apart, grow back
Mm,
together again. They've challenged our relationship in all kinds of ways. They've helped us grow in all kinds of ways. And, we've always been strong as a couple, but I feel like it has just strengthened us in deep ways that we may not have had
yep.
otherwise. So, it's important to not lose hope. And so I offer my birth story as the closure in that hope journey because I had lost hope
Mhm.
and I had accepted in my heart and soul that I was supposed to be like those who don't do teach, right? You know that saying, like those who can't do teach. I had just kind of accepted that that was what my role was supposed to be. And when I reached that level of surrender, that he literally came in like the next month.
Yep.
And
I remember you
so
saying that too. I remember it very clearly. I was like, "Nope." Not with all this. Nope.
yeah, surrender is such a big piece of it in a world where we try to micromanage and control because of trauma and history. And, we try to control to keep ourselves safe. We control how we present ourselves to the world to protect our hearts from loss and judgment and all of these kinds of things. And that the pregnancy journey is absolutely no different, except the pregnancy journey requires a level of surrender that is totally unlike anything else. Both the conception as well as the delivery side of things. You can't control these things. There is, in Chinese medicine, they believe heavenly mandate wise that heaven and earth come together to create humanity. That's not something that we have the power to control. That is in spirit's hands, the universe's hands, God's hands, whatever term you want to use for the powers that be. Heaven and earth come together to create humanity. And what we have the power to control, and what I spent so many years doing, is getting my mind, my body, and my spirit in alignment and not giving lip service to things, becoming a living, breathing product of what I was teaching
Mm,
and sharing what I was learning with other people, sharing what I knew to work with others so that they could realize their dreams.
mhm.
And the most rewarding thing that I've ever done is help people to hold babies that they never thought they'd be able to hold. It brings me so much joy and makes me feel like everything that I went through, all my dark nights of the soul, were totally worth it so that other people could realize their dreams and hold their little wiggling dreams in their arms. And that is the mission of Moon Essence, is to help people learn how to care for their bodies in the best way possible so that they can have whatever they want,
Mhm.
whether it is a symptom-free period, whether it is a baby, whether it is a healthier postpartum recovery, whether it is more ease in the menopausal journey, whatever it is, that they can realize their goals and not have their body call the shots.
Yep.
So I could talk about this forever, and I
Me
could talk
too.
with you forever
Me
because
too.
I
It's
love you and adore you.
I love you too. I know. I know.
Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share?
I just wanna say thank you. And thank you for seeing all of this through, and for trusting your intuition, and for being an amazing human being and woman and friend, and you've given me a ton of hope. You have, and I'm still on that journey, and I'm almost 40, so we'll see how it goes, but but no, I'm just so grateful and to have been where I was mentally, emotionally, all of it, physically, and to be healing because of the work that you have done on yourself and helped others with. It's just, I'm just really grateful, and I'm so excited that he's here. And I'm so happy for you guys. I really am. Like, to see this is just, it's blowing my mind every day. I'm still kind of like waking up from all of it. So I'm just super grateful. That's really it. Super grateful. Really, really happy to be a part of this village. And yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank
Mhm.
you. I am so grateful for you being at my birth and
Like,
capturing one of the most powerful moments of my life.
mhm.
And all of I remember you saying at one point, like, "Could you hear my camera clicking? It felt so loud in the room." And I was like, "Girl, I didn't hear anything
Well,
except
I
a
was
growl
grateful.
in my body."
Yeah, because I'd never heard my camera before in that space, but there was something. Well, your space was it was such an amazing container, and you also create containers in Accutonics, and, like, you create containers, and you showed me how to do that, and I've been in yours, so I'm like, "Whoa, this is a whole different container," but I was so worried, yeah, I kept hearing my camera, and I was looking around like, "Can everyone is this okay?" Like, because it was such a sacred space, it really was, but yeah. No, it was really cool to be there.
I thought that was so funny when you asked me that. I was like, "No, girl, I didn't
I
hear
know, you're
anything."
like,
Like, I
"Really?
just
Really? Come on. Do you see what I was doing?" You know what's happening.
I was one growl to the next at that point.
I'm
I
just
was just
always worried that, like, because some women want music, some women want no sound, and I know you were somewhere you were in your place, in another place, but I was like, "Is that gonna piss her off?" And then I was like, "Well, well, she'll tell me. She'll throw a pillow at me or something." That's what I love about you, though, is, like, you speak your mind and your truth, so I'm never worried with you. I'm just like, "Alright, cool." Like, she'll let me know. She'll let me know.
Mhm.
That's much appreciated too, by the way.
No, it's perfect. Well, that's just who I am as a person and as a
Right.
practitioner, right? It is what it is. I
Yep.
am not a fancy MD with all kinds of pomp and circumstance. Like, I'm a human being who's had human challenges. And
Mhm.
because I was the why child growing up, I wanted to figure out why these things were happening and what I could do about it. And so, it was the foundation of my practice. It's the way that I practice. It's
I've been
just
to all the dances levels and all of it, and I didn't get any answers, so thank you until now. So,
all right. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this really intimate space and this intimate conversation and sharing in the joy. There's so many of you that are listeners of the show that have reached out to me through social media and email just to send congratulations and best wishes. And so I just want to thank you all so much for holding my family in your thoughts and your prayers and your hearts. And, we're just so grateful that my son is here and he is perfect. And I'm recovering beautifully. Like, I look back at my recovery with my daughter and like it was months and I still didn't feel whole or complete. And I am still within the first month of my postpartum journey. And I'm already, in terms of the healing piece of it, so much further than I was in months, and I'm 40, not 27.
yay.
So, this work really works. And what you carry into your pregnancy, it's like that whole garbage in, garbage out idea. Like, if you aren't doing the things that you need to do to support your body going into the pregnancy, you will definitely see all of those things in the postpartum, as well as in the pregnancy, but definitely in the postpartum, because pregnancy takes everything that you have on board. And, this is a piece that I work with people a lot so that they're walking into their pregnancies with as much on board as possible to minimize the bounce through the pregnancy and then into their postpartum. And, I'm seeing the fruits of that labor. And with the things that I have available to me with steaming and herbs, and, like I had a little more bleeding than I was hoping for. I didn't hemorrhage, but I was kind of close at the end because there was just so much intensity to the pushing. And, I had herbs on hand to work with that immediately afterwards. And Alicia had said to me, about my color, that I was like white as a sheet. And then I took the herbs and then just a little bit afterwards, like I looked
Oh,
more like a human again.
your color came right back. Your daughter too even said, she was like, "Whoa." Yep,
So, knowledge is power.
yep.
Knowledge about your body, about what it needs. This is exactly what we do at Moon Essence to make sure that people are prepared for all of these things and have the tools that they need to be able to not suffer from mom brain for years afterwards. And because mom brain is real, the depletion is real. People can be postnatally depleted up to 10 years after they have a baby.
Mm.
And, that takes a toll on your body and its balance and the hormones and all of those kinds of things. And, you know, the more you know, the better you're able to prepare yourself, have certain things set up for your postpartum, have certain support that you need. and it really does take a village in terms of caring for you and your newborn. So, again, thank you so much for the very beautiful, special role that you played in this birth that I've waited for so long.
Mhm.
And we'll share some of Alicia's pictures on Moonescence. So make sure that you are following at Moonescence Me so that you can see some of the things that I'm doing in the postpartum to help my body, but also Alicia's beautiful work because I'm going to share some of her amazing photography as well and tag her. So if you would like her to come to your birth as well, she's taken beautiful photos of my family and my shower and my birth. And I couldn't be happier with how she's just captured our hearts and our moments. And I hope that for you and your family as well. So contact information for Allycia will be in the show notes, and definitely follow at Moonescence Me so that you can see the journey unfold and see all of the things that I'm doing in the postpartum to optimize my health. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moonescence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonescence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moonescence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.